This is really, really wonderful, and we really appreciate you coming to Quivey's. And by the way, we're not closing. We are. We are hoping to sell because Craig and I are going to be 70, and it's time to think about retirement.
Kids. What's the,
I'm not going to say much more. I'm just
so
going
far,
to
so
say
good?
that Arlan Kay is God's gift to historic preservation.
You need mine?
He is an outstanding architect, number one.
Okay.
Number two, he so appreciates buildings like
So we have-
this
we have
and
a-
keeping them for generations and generations to come. And so I am very honored that
This
he
room
wants
is meant
to
for 30.
do this presentation for you all today.
tables.
So thank you
So,
all for being here, really. Thank you.
Thank you. I sort of put this as in the beginning. In the beginning, there was this farmhouse. And the farmhouse, built in 1855 by a Mr. Mann who had come, Yankee, who came to the Midwest to make his fortune. And what he had on this particular farm was a lot of walnut trees. What he didn't have was a lot of stone. But the neighbor had the stone, the neighbor did not have walnut trees. So he traded walnut trees for stone and built the house and the barn and the fences that you have here. This is a very picturesque little setting. This is an Italianate. This is an Italianate house. What is Italianate, for goodness sakes? It is relatively simple. Tends to be taller, tends to have a broad overhang, brackets, deep windows. So this is having a stone house is very typical to this. And along came a couple years later the barn. Now this is all in the late 50s. So you're starting in 55, 57, and then came the crash of 57. So that was when the big deep depression that we didn't come out of until we had the crisis of the Civil War. But the walnut trees are still here, along the rail fence. And the stone barn. There was a dairy barn behind. The ruins that we found in the back, where there once was a much taller barn, that collapsed, burned, we don't know for sure, but it was no longer there. So the ruins, we're looking at, was there going to be a way that we could use those? And they were pretty tippy, no real footings, so they were not that good. And of course we have the assets. Everybody knows the saying of it's built like a brick outhouse, right? We not only did not have a brick outhouse, we had two stone outhouses. And one was still functioning, and one was being used as a tool shed. Now, let's back up here a little bit. If we're having in the beginning, the house was the residence of the Wascos. And they loved their horses, and they loved their Afghan hounds. So in the back, you have, through here was the washing station for the Afghan hounds, a two-car garage in the back. Let's see, do we have there? Can you see? There we go. There's a two-car garage in between. So you have the barn, which was sort of used also. There was a horse barn, but also had the garage door that could be used for the vehicles. Anyway, we've already had the outhouse. So there's assets in natural, existing historic assets built from 1855 to 57. Now, let's start going through the house. There's an issue that when you go from a house to a commercial building, infrastructure, plumbing. So we had to tear up the front yard, and that is, I don't have the depth of that trench, but it is something that you get about a 12-foot deep trench just to get the sewer, the water, the gas, the electrical put in underground. Now, if you're going to be converting a house to a restaurant, what happens? Well, you gotta start going through what you need. You need large kitchens. You need the commercial restrooms. You need to have the exit stairs, not just one, but two. Usually the house has one. This one had two. It's actually one that was a servant stair in the back. Oh, and if you, and you're dealing with the little design things that are part of the house. If you look at the house here, you see you have the big windows, you have the big house, and then you have the little house. What's the difference? Well, you also have these great French doors that lead up. So this was, in fact, a dining room. That was, in fact, a kitchen back there. And where Deirdre is right now, she's standing at the door that came into this room. The other door over there, where everybody comes in here now, was actually to the other room. This thing was not big enough for a restaurant. And, unfortunately, there was a very large hand-hewn timber that went all the way through here that was underneath that. And underneath that was the wall that was holding it up. How do we make this room bigger? Well, we also found that right there where your feet are, sir, you feel the little bump. There's also a hand-hewn timber underneath there.
Wow, cool.
We moved the structure over to here and we hung steel beams over to be picking up this hand-hewn timber so we cantilevered over so we can get a decent-sized room. Now, there's also assets here. You see these very deep and thick walls. Stone walls, the classic, they are 18 inches thick. That's the classic construction. You have a stone on the outside, you have a stone on the inside, and then you have rubble in the middle. Now what that does, it gives some flex. Because while the inside walls are expanding in the winter because they're warm, the outside walls are shrinking because it's cold. And then the reverse sort of you get the summer and it kind of reverses. So the walls are trying to desperately tear themselves apart. And so you have this very thick wall that the inside and outside are working kind of independently, and you have this mush in between that lets it do it. That's the classic masonry. That's masonry that has been going on, mason construction has been going on for millennia. Thousands and thousands of years that little method happened to be. Now you also have the design of the building. You have a grand front door. Did you come in the front door?
No.
Now if you're in a farmhouse, how many are farmers? How many grow up farmers?
Farmers? A couple farmers?
Did you ever come in the front door? So being a little an Iowa dirt farmer myself, I said, everybody's going to be coming in the back door. It was only when you had a funeral or the parson came that you maybe came in the front door. Maybe you use that. If you go over to the other side, why is that roof so short? Why are the windows so small? Why is the ceiling lower than the rest of the house? The help slept upstairs. The hired girl, the hired man. And when we go through the little tour, there's going to be 3 steps as you come from this side to that side. That's so you knew your station.
Oh.
So look for those little subtleties in design that start saying something about the culture. Fun little room, the grand house, the grand door, and this grand door, yes?
We always used the front door when we took family pictures.
See? It was that special occasion. Otherwise, it stayed pretty much locked, didn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much. I don't know if you locked it.
I grew up in a stone house. I know.
The door that was here we found was just a big solid, was one of these hollow metal doors, those insulated standard modern doors. That wasn't going to do. Along West Washington Avenue, there was a number of homes coming down to be they were part of the Methodist Hospital expansion. And one of those or the Methodist senior housing. Anyway, this door came from one of those houses that was Civil War vintage. So we have, so you go out there, you see, you do an old door that was salvaged, recycled, repurposed for here. Now, if you're going to have all this stuff that's going to go into the modern building, you put a lean-to on it. The stuff that is going to include, first we have the bathroom, or the back door. So now we're coming in the back door, which you came in, and off to the right, because there's no room in here. If we had the kitchen inside the historic house, if we had the restrooms inside the historic house, there would be no historic house left. So that's where the concept of having this addition. And it's also very fitting for those of you who grew up in the older homes and the old farmhouses to have one lean-to after another. Oh, we have another 2 kids. Oh, another lean-to came on. That was a standard construction method. Now, we also have, if you're looking, and if you go back out there, you're going to start seeing some scars. You see right here?
Right.
There where some of the additions were. You're also going to see some deep stains, dark stains on the wall here. Notice the chimney. That chimney was, no, it wasn't coal. It was converted to the exhaust fan for the kitchen. So we have a lot of cooking grease that's still leaching through the stone. And good luck on getting rid of it. It's only going to be time. So we have the lean-to, including the lean-to going up to the second floor. The little windows up there, that's where the dumbwaiter is to be serving the rooms up there. So that's a little wait station. And so we're trying to make these as innocuous as possible, that they're just natural, that they're just there, so that you have the glory of this house. And you hide little things like the air conditioning. Oh, there was air conditioning. So in 1855, what was the air conditioning? And the stone. And 13-foot ceilings. So this right now is a little more fitting to what we have now, or the needs we have now. If you start looking at the wonderful masonry in this house, if you're glancing at this wall right here, you can start seeing the coursed joint, very formal coursed joints. And some of those had a raised mortar joint in it. Some of you can see it out the window
right.
here.
Yeah.
Up here, so there's a combination. This is expensive to do. This is hard to do. This is time consuming to do. So once you get from this very formal setting to around the corner, that's not showing to the front, in the back, on the side, then we start doing what we can afford. Or more affordable, or more cost cutting, or something. We still have a stone wall that's being put up. Now here again is that, there was that chimney that was up above. You start seeing the remnants. So this is part of your archaeological dig as to what was here before and what were the uses that were there. So we're coming in the back, and that was one of the back doors that came in through here. You see it lines up to where it was sort of in the kitchen. It didn't come into the dining room, it came into that kitchen area. Now, are we going to get id of these? They're in the way.
No.
This is a great, these are the fun little outhouses. There was 2, that this was a rather grand statement. Why 2? That we're not quite sure. Either large family, servant, that there was a servant's one, as well as the owners of the establishment. And then we start looking at how we connect to that we have this whole complex in here. And the idea at the time was that the restaurant in the house was going to be the main dining experience. And that the barn was going to be where you came in, said, I'm here, and say, go, why don't we sit at the bar, have a cocktail first, and then go over to the house. That was sort of the standard supper club, restaurant, go to the bar, wait, and then come over to the main dining. Things were changing. That was not quite the formula, but to... Oh, we'll get back to that. Here was that front door. That was the front door that we found. When you go out there, you'll be seeing the front door that we did salvage. Oh, we have sort of standard of the Italianate and the 19th century. You have the windows are on the edges that were letting the light in, and they were often stained glass or had colored paper on them. But it was a part privacy, part light. Joe. Now, Joe and Deirdre. Deirdre, you're going to have to fill in the blank here or correct me if I'm wrong, but you and Joe ran an art gallery for a while. And in that art, there was great sensitivity and great taste. And some of the carpets, the blankets that you have here that are decorating each of the dining rooms. And this is Grandma's Garden, the name of that one. You will find that there's colors that come out of the quilts that are picked up in the rooms. This is fairly simple. You will also see a number of other artworks here, including some of their favorite, the political cartoons from the 19th century. Great fun. Now, the fun thing about having clients like Joe and Deirdre is I call them runners. They're runners because I had to keep running to stay with them. This is the most fun, these are the most fun clients to have. The ones that you have to really work to keep up with and be as creative as possible to be with them. Joe had, was it you or Joe that found the lamps? Joe found the lamps. So this was, he's unwrapping some of the early 18th century type light fixtures that you're going to be seeing around here. Not the cans up here. but these were remnants or reminiscent of kerosene or candle lamps, and you'll be seeing them throughout the place. Joe was no longer with us, unfortunately, and missed. Now, if you can barely see this, when we took off the wallpaper, there were some inscriptions that were left by the wallpapers and painters. And if you can barely see, this is a head. These are Liberty heads. You have a crown with a nose. You have another sort of crown. And so if you look on your $20 gold piece, you had a Liberty head. Or maybe it's even a $5 gold piece. It was a Liberty head that was on there. So this was a constant, yes?
Did you use microphone?
Oh, that we could try again. These were the Liberty heads that were drawn on here. They're fairly faint, and of course, when we don't have the best lighting here, that's going to be hard to see. But that was underneath the wallpaper.
Cool.
Now, modernizing. How do you get a place where you brought in the whale oil or the kerosene for lighting or candles, that now we have to have electricity, heating, mundane things. Heating, air conditioning, plumbing. And so it's a little bit of an adventure as how to best do this and respect the history of the place and not muck it up. So that's always a challenge. The staircase. This is a high-tech staircase in 1855. High-tech staircase? What is he talking about? If you look at jigsaws were just invented. jigsaw ornament instead of hand carved and hand tooled ornament. You now have something that was jigsawed and giving you something that was cheaper, better, faster, or so they thought. So it's not this. You will find when we do the little tour, take a look at it. It's flat, it's ornamented, has the console bracket, and on top we of course have the walnut handrail and the new door. So part of the additions, we have the kitchen. So it's a significant addition. Yes, this is a small restaurant, but it still needs a, if you have a restaurant, the rule of thumb is that for every 2 square feet of restaurant dining space you have to have 1 square feet of kitchen and refrigerator. That's a lot of space.
Yeah.
Plus having the restrooms. Equipment coming in. Now, there's some brightly colored trim, and you're going to be looking, when you're seeing, and this is upstairs, you're going to be seeing that brightly colored trim, and it's going to be picking colors out of the quilts. So when we take the tour, you'll see the different colors, and this was also typical of the period to be having bright colors. Down here, this is on first floor, and you'll be seeing in the first floor dining room, that is a that has an original floor in it, which has the wide hemlock plank, and it also has the dovetail anchors and pegs, walnut of course, to be holding it together. Now, let's go to the barn. You've seen that picture before, haven't you? You've seen that picture before. There's one of these out in the barn, but how do you convert a rather small, it's only 30 by 30 stone barn into the bar restaurant that it is today? First off, you have to clean it out. Yes, it was a horse barn. And that's, you see Craig Kennick, that's his father on the right, and his brother on the left. Jim Kennick was the construction manager, and we had teamed up on a number of projects. And in this one, well, this is a fun one. And he brought his 2 sons to be working here too. The floor in the barn is a wooden floor. If you have horses, you do not want them standing on concrete. You don't want them walking on concrete. You want them standing on something that has some resilience. So it's a wood floor. What do you put the wood floor on? Well, you put the wood floor on, let's see, on some hand-hewn timbers.
Whoa.
So those are the timbers that are under the floor.
Huge.
So these are hand-hewn walnut timbers holding up the stable. And if you look in between, there is about 3 feet of archaeological dig. Most of it manure. All finely composted and dried. But there's a few bottles and a few little things that some of the hired men had discarded in there so that they didn't get caught. You see some of the reinforcing that we're doing in here. But this was...
Is that still there?
All of that is there. It's under the floor. It's still there.
The manure too?
Think of what you guys get.
We did take quite a bit out. So you see there's reinforcing in here, and I was later, the state went through all the structural machinations as to how is this going to hold up? Are we going to be able to hold up the 100 pounds a square foot that restaurants require? So I was doing reinforcing, and I was using the strength of some of the timbers there, and the state actually contacted me numbers of times about, how'd you do that? We got somebody else who's coming in here. Can they do that? So I became a resource for health and safety. Now, the interesting thing is that with the hayloft and that, by now, after 100 and some odd years, things are sagging and swooping. It also that the timbers that were holding up the floors ran up to there. So we had to resource out. We had to find other hand-hewn timbers from other barns to be building the structure so that we could hold up the roof. Details. We also had to, I was using something to flatten out, have the floor be level, but also be structural. This is a structural wood decking, so it's thick, and had it in combination with the floor below to again be able to hold up the restaurant loading. Now you're going upstairs, and one of the things, what do we love about a barn? Everybody loves a barn. Why? It's that great big open space, all that structure that's in there, all those timbers, and the roof rafters, and the wood boards in between. We love it. Now, how am I going to insulate that? How am I going to fix it? How and still retain everything, retain the character? Oh, and what is this crap doing here? You know, they were in those things. What are they there for? Any ideas? They're in the way. I mean, if I wouldn't put a table along here, they're in the way. Why don't we just get rid of them?
Structural?
You know what?
Do they hold up the roof?
They don't hold up the roof at all. They hold it down. You see, they're hooked onto the rafters here, and they come down and they hook onto the floor joists below that are wedged in the stone. If you go into modern construction, you have all these nice, cute little metal clips and anchors and things that you put on there.
Tornado.
Didn't exist. How do you anchor anything to a stone wall? You don't. Not at the top. You anchor it down where you have some bite. So, well, Joe wanted to get rid of these. They were in the way. Joe, we can't get rid of those. So we did cut them in half and slim them down quite a bit. And then on this, we were able, did we have that? We have the wonderful wood ceiling, that wonderful texture, that wonderful age, that wonderful character. Those knots and the wood shingles that are between. Oops, let's just go back and think about, I put insulation on the outside. The one compromise to the design of the building is that the roof now has a thicker profile. So we have about 6 inches of styrofoam insulation on top, little vent space, and we preserve the interior character. And it's always nice to have Bernie. Bernie is the gentleman we found who loved to tear down barns and recycle timbers. So when we needed timbers and we needed wood, he was the one. In fact, these are not recycled timbers. These are some classic elm boards that he had milled that had some aging to it, and they became the restroom stalls. We have to have a master carpenter, and I desperately forget his name. But he was very good and was very helpful in us in, as you see, building the stairs, beholding to the character with recycled wood, and we still had more stuff to haul out of the stable. We had 3 feet of it to haul out. And so Craig's kid brother got the job.
Oh, there we are.
Now, one of the things that was kind of important was to me is light, and letting light into the barn. How do you do that without punching a lot of useless holes in the stone wall? We chose this method of giving that clear story. And once it was opened up, the carpenters were just ecstatic that it was letting life into this barn. And it still is working very well today. So those are all salvage timbers up there from, these are barns west of Milwaukee that were salvaged out. Here again you see the floor where we turn the new surfacing into structure. And there's more stuff to haul out. In taking off the asbestos siding that was on the outer part, and some of the old barn timber, old barn boards that were still there, which was kind of nice. They're a little rough. When we had the doors no longer operate there, but we gave that, which is typical mid-19th century, the windows over to be letting some natural light in. And we have the barn as it is today. Not quite. But you see the lean-to again. The lean-to is where we had the restrooms. That lean-to gave us a chance to be having some of the mechanicals hiding in there, and the stairway, and an entry. We're open for business, 1980. That great, and we were able to keep, and we were so happy to see that crabapple tree did not demise through the construction. And you see, there is still a little sag in that roof. That's there. Now, what happens? How did that happen? Well, as all middle-aged, 100 years? Okay. If middle age is 120 years, masonry walls get what they call a belly. They sag and spread a little bit too. So if you go up there and you can start seeing where some of this is part of the natural pressure of the hay mow, and also the in and out of the temperature that's happening with the masonry. Now, this doesn't look like it does today. This is the west side. But on the inside, this is when the bar was in the stable itself. And you're looking from the doorway. And if you go into this doorway, as we will be going over there shortly, you'll be seeing a picture of what it looked like as you looked in that doorway. The stairs. These again were the salvage timbers. And we have the two stairs so that we still have our two means of exit out of the upper floor in this small space. Yes, it's called a scissors stair. And I'm not quite sure, Deirdre, where'd you find that flag? It was wonderful. It was the 36 stars of the at the time of the states at the time. But what a great space. Now, how do you do some basic things like, where's all the heating ducts? Well, if you had a barn, you had a hay chute. If you had a barn or granary, you also had a grain chute. So I made hay chutes to be enclosing the ductwork. They're there, not obvious. Let's try to make something that's blending in. Joel found another light, great light. Oh, the tunnel. Now there was one thing that we had in this restaurant theory at the time, was that while people stopped at the barn, checked in, said, we're here for reservation at 8 o'clock, hey, sit down, wait a few minutes, hopefully have a cocktail there while you're waiting, and then Wisconsin being Wisconsin, we needed a tunnel. We needed a way to connect the barn to the house. So did we have an above grade addition that could be full of art and such things? Well, the site is not that big, so we needed some place to be driving. And so the driveway was here, and so it was, instead of having something above ground, we did the tunnel. Yes, we did the tunnel. That's 1980. The rumor has it, and shortly after this was open, I was following somebody, a know-it-all. He was a great know-it-all. He was explaining to all his friends that this is where they hid the slaves in the Underground Railroad. All I can say is, go! Keep that story going! The mortar was still wet. At the end of the tunnel, at the house end of the tunnel, we built a wine cellar. Now this little wine cellar has some interesting history behind it, because I was used to, where do we put the gate? We say, I was the tallest guy around, so I reached in through that gate, fingers were here, and so we came out 6 inches more, and that was the surface of where the wine cellar would be. It didn't work. We figured this was not State Street. We're not going to be having problems like they had down State Street. But lo and behold, I don't know who came by, but somebody had jumped the fence into here and was throwing out bottles to their friends. So then to put a stop to that, there was a screen mesh put in front of it to keep that nonsense from happening anymore. But the tunnel, great fun. Yes, there's the evidence. We did it. So now, to get this, we had to get the texture, the stone texture down there, did a couple of things. Well, let's see, is that the one? Yes. We had a double section in here. We poured concrete in here. We had a screen here where we had the rubble stone. So rubble stone here, pour the concrete in here, rip the forms off, and most of it falls away, but enough of it sticks to the concrete that we have this rough cut stone wall.
Oh.
Did you carve it? How did you do that?
Secret.
So now, there it is. There's that rough, see all the stuff that's laying on the ground? There's a lot more of it. Now, to have the tunnel, the roof, idea was to lay a thin layer of sand across there and put the stones on top of the sand, and then pour concrete over it. And when the forms came out, two things happened. Right here, I have a very weak form. It only has a support down the middle. When you start pouring a lot of weight on it, it's going to deflect. I'm counting on that happening. And when you go down there, you'll see a gentle S-curve to that roof. And then you pour the concrete on top, and now you drove over that when you came here. So every time you drove past the little stone outhouses, you drove over the tunnel.
Yay.
So now you have the tunnel. I think that's Craig. And he's cleaning up down there, getting rid of all the stuffing and things that are there. And you see the stone ceiling. Now there's another great thing about the about this tunnel is that the staff found out about it. The staff who's working here. And of course their demographic is young and loud. They love loud music. They love to, and they were legendary, or I'm not supposed to say that, I'm not supposed to tell about that. Legendary tunnel parties. Legendary tunnel that happen after work. So what happens when you crank up the volume at 1 o'clock in the morning, or 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and you have all kinds of carousing going on? Well, the neighbors complain. In a tunnel, nobody knows you're there. Loud music and all kinds of carryings on. Now, things have been happening since. We now have what I call the Hog Barn Edition, the addition to the west. The bar in the barn, suddenly there was demand for, can we get a burger out here? That turned into, well, can we get a little fish fry? That turned into, and then came the Hog Barn Edition with a big kitchen behind. So it was no longer a little grill in the corner of the bar. It was something that has supplanted and changed the dynamic of this place. Very popular. And again, Bernie comes to the rescue, and we're finding all kinds of hand-hewn and old timbers to be building this addition. That's sort of fitting there. So that is 10 years newer. So that's only 30 years old. But if you find this particular timber, it's difficult to see, there's a date carved in it. Carpenter screwed up. It's upside down. See if you can find it. But the character, and that's what's great about Quivey's, is that it has character. And we've tried to make it as authentic as possible.
Oh my. Beautiful.
Using just a simple truss design that I took out of a Benjamin Ashler book. Benjamin Ashler was an architect who first wrote, he was a did the Country Carpenter book on architecture from 1797, and he had a few of his books into the 1830s. These were pattern books that were copied, were used a lot. And this is also where you have tamarack roof joist. These are tamarack logs.
Oh.
Are the roof boards walnut?
No. No. We didn't cut any of the trees down here for that. So it's a lot of old, but there's a lot of old barn boards for that. Large kitchen in the back. And again, the light fixtures that Joe had found, the hand-hewn, that is a real hand-hewn timber from a barn. And again, holding true to the character, add on. And the tent starts to appear. So, how many of you enjoyed the fish fries out here in the tent? Lots of good times here. Now, what I don't have is one more addition that was put on here. I was no longer doing slides at that time. So you have been entertained by our mid-century modern screen and carousel projector. Let's see, I think, Deirdre, were you? I think you said something one time about that you and Craig were sitting down here and there was somebody, a father and a son were playing catch. There was a wedding rehearsal in the front yard. All the little, oh, where do you go to? And just getting ready for the, people were coming. there's something very special about Quivey's. The weddings that are out here, just the way that it's their front yard. It's their community center.
You have some questions?
Okay.
Oh, we'd love to do questions. I'm sure we got tons of them. If you don't-
Any questions? Yes, sir.
How did it get named Quivey?
Aha! Not from here. Anyway, Joe was going through. Well,
You wanna tell us
I never know who would give credit to. Was Joe or Deirdre?
Oh, no, Joe. I
Yeah.
was in law school.
Okay.
When we did this.
Okay, so she's taking the fifth. Quivey's Grove is actually, they was looking for a place name in Fitchburg. Is there a place name in Fitchburg? And going through the history of Fitchburg, came across Quivey's. Now, the Mann estate just didn't, or the Mann farm just didn't seem to cut it as far as the rest. Somehow Quivey's came up, and this is, if you go to the very southern edge of Fitchburg, if you're on Fish Hatchery Road, and you're by the Swan Pond, it's now called Oak Hall area.
Oh, yeah.
That was Quivey's Grove. And you will find it also in John Muir's autobiography, that as he walked from the Lake Harriet School, where he taught in the Oregon School District for a year, and he would walk to Quivey's Grove, and that was where the post office was, where the voting station was, where the grocery stop was, where the stage stop was. Lori didn't like the name. She was, my wife, thought it sounded more like a social disease. But the name has been successful and it has stuck. That's a long roundabout question? Answer?
Yeah, that's good.
Question.
How many owners how many of this property, how many owners have there been?
In your little history brochure here, we have them, the Mann family, and then the Lathams, the Comstocks, the Huddlestons, the Wascos, and then Barton County.
Okay. Something else that's kind of characteristic. If you see, this is also, we're in the prairie. We don't have a lot of the, you don't go down to the Home Depot and pick stuff up. You're milling things on the side. So you have a lot of simple but very bold and big wood trim. The big and bold wood trim is very typical of the time. Yes?
How long did this project take, and did the owners hire you to do did they like what you did, so they kept you on for the stable?
We did that at the same
model?
we did it at the same time. So we did the house and the stable and the tunnel all at the same time.
Oh, you did?
Yes, it was opened in the spring of '80. We started in '79, so a little less than a year.
That's pretty good.
Wow.
So so I didn't get thrown out completely, because then we did the hog barn addition where it moved the barn and the kitchen out to onto the barn, and then another addition onto the barn, and then a little restoration work here and there. So they haven't thrown me out yet.
Yeah.
Probably should.
Here you are.
And here I am.
I just have a comment.
Yes, sir.
I was out here probably, when Wascos were here. When Wascos were here, they were a member of the same church I belonged to. And I think I was out here to try to collect some money. No, it was a stewardship kind of thing, as we remember. Anyway, he showed me his stable, which was just stone walls at that time. There was no wood, and all the dogs. They were huge Norwegian wolfhounds or something like that.
Afghan wolfhounds.
Yeah, they were like the size of a Great Dane, and he had a lot of them. I don't remember horses, but I do remember the dogs. And one other thing I'll just mention, and this is something somebody else here may remember. It's kind of a sad thing, but Wasco's had a little boy or a girl that was killed out here on the road by a man in Verona who was traveling home from his work. And that road out there was 18 and 151 at that time. So there was a considerable amount of traffic. And I don't remember whether it was a boy or a girl, but he was very young. And that was a very unfortunate thing that happened here.
The highway, yeah. Remember, that was Highway 151, 18151. So times have changed there. Now, thank you for bringing up the Afghan hounds. They loved, the Wascos loved their Afghan hounds. And they decorated the main hallway in Afghan hound wallpaper. It gets better. Picture foil, black, white, very vertical lines with big blotches of red accenting in it. Foil wallpaper in this house. But they loved their Afghan hounds. And it took a little while to get rid of the very heavy duty wash tub that they washed the Afghan hounds in. It was a big one.
Did you repurpose it?
The wallpaper?
Questions?
Yes, one more question.
Thoughts? Yes.
As an architect, what part are you most proud of this whole project? If you had to pick a one thing, like what?
Oh boy. The longevity. It's one thing. When you're doing restaurants in the strip center, you've done the strip center. As soon as that gets out of fashion, it's gone. Longevity of this continues on. And as Deirdre says, they're not quitting. They're not shutting the place down. They're looking for how this can continue on. And there's just something special about this place to continue on. And we hope that you keep on coming.
Thank you.
How did you get interested in your career in historic restoration?
Oh, that's a good one. So the question was,
How to get into restoration? I guess there's a number of paths. One is when I let's see. Well, I guess when I first was on my own, I started the Design Coalition along with my wife, and which is a non-profit, which is like legal aid, only architecture and planning. And what do? You're working with old buildings. Okay, then I went off onto my own. And what do you do as a young architect who's starting a firm? You do remodeling. I was good at it. Mostly people start using it as a jump-off point, and then they're going off on their brand new structures and things. And somehow the people kept on coming to me. So I must have been halfway decent at it. And kind of liked it. And there was something with the character and the language, the architectural language of good old buildings. Even bad old buildings can be turned into something. So yes, I've turned a few sow's ears around. But for the most part, it's been a fun thing, and somehow people kept on coming. And they're still calling me out, even though I sold the business. Go figure.
You left the legacy.
Deirdre, did you want to add anything about Quivey's from your perspective? Just because this is our chance to really capture this. Someone might watch this video 100 years from now, we're hoping. Is there anything you want to add? Because you've been there. Not to put you on the spot, but.
Is that the front door is not the original front door anymore. We did have to replace it, which I guess we never told Arlan about that. Sorry. But No, I mean, this really was my husband Joe's project and his work and his love, and he then went on to do 10 Chimneys over in Waukesha County. Oh, I'm sorry. In Waukesha County, and he was a great lover of old buildings and places with stories in them, and sharing that with all kinds of people. So thank you so much for wanting to come today, and really this is wonderful. We do have cookbooks for sale if you're interested over in the stable. So we do our cooking really has been about heritage cooking, and taking literally we have recipes from our mothers and grandmothers, and they're still on the menu, and they're still loved, and so that's very important to us, not to be trendy, not to be, just kind of the latest whatever, but to be very true to our Wisconsin heritage. So thank you for coming today and hearing about that.
So that's the old hardwood. This is the new hardwood on top.
Okay. That's walnut too, or?
No, that's hemlock.
Oh, that's hemlock.
There are walnut pegs in there. Now, you can see that downstairs too. So you see, this is again the original hemlock floor that was down in the dining room down below. You have the 11, 12-foot ceilings in here. And one of the things that I had a great deal of problems with is that I love the finishes, the hard surfaces of the old buildings. You there?
Yep.
The hard surfaces, unfortunately, started ricocheting around. And much to my dismay, Joe decided we got to put some acoustical on here so people could talk. Oh, well, so you breathe deeply and you say, okay.
You don't have to get approval from historic preservation for what you do and stuff like that?
Okay, now, if you have a landmark, and this was made a landmark after we were done.
Oh, okay.
Now, if you were, there's a long thing going on in that usually a local landmark, and there's a Fitchburg Historic Preservation Commission, or Landmark Commission.
Sorry for the cord bar.
If you're remodeling, doing anything to the outside, they want to know about it.
Over here. I'll take it over here.
The inside is pretty much free game.
Okay.
If you are going for the tax credit, if you are on the National Register of Historic Places, and you're going for tax credits, the State Historical Society is very interested in what you do on the inside. Most of it's still common sense.
Okay.
So, I had, people can complain about it, but mostly it's common sense. If you want to respect what the building, the architectural character of the building is, architectural language, it's easy. Even the windows, they're old puppies. You get a storm window on them, you see the shutters?
Yeah.
Big glass, deep windows. And of course, and I always come into the rooms and enjoy the artwork.
Do you think this is original plaster in here, Arlan, still?
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not, okay.
Okay, why is it not? Because the original plaster was directly onto the stone walls. Now, Mans came from East Coast. It's a bit milder out there. They hit the good old Wisconsin winter. And within a year or two, they were furring out the walls and so there's a dead air space there now, and new plaster on top. So this is the second layer of plaster on here.
Okay. Nice.
Welcome to Wisconsin. That would have been very likely 59, 57, 59. So it didn't last long. You could see that we're not waiting. It got cold in here in just a solid stone house.
And you thought this floor was original, though? And
Yes.
what about like the door molding and stuff?
Very likely original.
Okay.
And also, okay, you see the hinge,
Yeah.
which is a lift-off hinge? That was very typical of the time.
What was the board? What?
Hemlock. Okay? Okay, if I brought you up the if you look at the staircase, you see that the handrail is at the proper height for the building code. I had to raise it up. And how do you raise something up to the 3.5 feet height when the original handrail is down here in the residence? So we took the original, lifted it up. So it's all the original handrail, except we had to lift it. And that's a safety code thing, and trying to make it as innocuous as possible. It was also very wobbly. So we had to we reinforced it with that post in the middle. When this was built, they took that walnut log and ran it from this wall all the way through this to the outside wall on the side. So you have a 30-foot long hand-hewn timber holding up the floor, holding up the roof rafters or the ceiling rafters, and none of it for residential design. The structure requires 40 pounds per square foot. Restaurants and places of gathering, 100 pounds a square foot. So I had to find a way of get 2.5 times the strength out of an existing wood floor. The floor joists themselves were not bad, but that timber was atrocious. So if you rip off the plaster on this wall, you will find airplane cables all the way
Oh,
through
my
here
goodness.
that are hanging and reinforcing up above, that's picking things up so that we meet the code required. All hidden.
I have a feeling you did not sleep for a year and a half.
That's not very well. It was, like I say, with all the running to keep up with the owners.
You don't sleep.
Arlen, did you have to change the stair rise and run to go legal?
We got a variance on that.
But not the handrail, but the stairs you did. Oh, cool.
The stairs did. The stair in the back is more fitting to the rise and run. That's more fitting code. It was close. It was close enough.
Oh, cool.
The back one is the code compliant stair.
Okay. Great. Where do you want to go next?
Well, here, enough here. So let's go down into the servants' quarters.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Or kitchens. Even when you had the old castles, kitchens were prone to fire. And if you're going to be rendering lard, and it suddenly blows up on you, do you lose a kitchen?
Yeah.
Or do you lose the whole house?
Oh.
So having the summer kitchen or kitchen wing, a lesser wing for that kitchen area is very typical. And it's also some thoughts for fire prevention.
Do you think this one was original to the original square too?
Yes, it was original.
It was, okay.
So, and where else are you going to keep the hired man and the hired girl living overnight? So you've got you're in now the Valentine. They still have what's the name over the door?
Valentine.
This is the Valentine room, and do enjoy the penny dreadfuls, because as we're approaching Valentine's Day, in the 19th century, the Valentines were meant to be rude and insulting. So if you see these and say, don't be my little honey bun, it is how you can insult somebody. So that's the penny dreadfuls there, and again, a collection. The art goes to the art collection. Was that close enough?
That was perfect. You actually got that right.
So now you have this lesser space. You had the 12-foot ceiling in the big house. You now have where the hired man and the hired girl, or whoever was staying here, knew their place. Where was the cook? There was a back stairway, a bit too steep and narrow, and so that is our one code-complying staircase leading down and out. The good old hand-hewn walnut timbers. And to make sure that they held a little bit more than what they did at the time, these little knee braces are just a quick little trick that I added. Not only for that we didn't need it for wind bracing, because we have very good wind bracing with the stone walls, but that cut the span greatly. And if you see the sag on these puppies, yeah. So they're not they were not up to code at the time. We have, let's see, well, you see our hay chute, which is now we're running our heating and air conditioning up and down. Now the stairway behind you. Now these hand-hewn logs, you see they're little. Have the bark on it, kind of scruffy bark on them. The first stair went wonderfully. The second stair, one stringer, was wonderful. The fourth stringer had a big chunk of rot on the end. Oh, we only had 4. This was it. So it was a lot of scrimping and scraping and measuring and tilting, and that we finally, as he cut into it, there was finally enough meat found that we could keep that 4th one and finish the stairs. But panic ensued. Let's see. Okay. If you have silly little barroom details. If you go up there, you see the top handrail? The top handrail, there's 2 pieces of wood. There's a flat surface there and down. And then there's another one across the top. That's on there. Why?
Drinks are falling off.
Nice.
Make it better for sliding down.
It's one of those little things that you don't hack, you don't tick off your customers by having drinks tipped over from upper floors. You would be in particularly bad shape there. Also, you have 2 different heights of floors. Or ceilings. Why do you have 2 different heights?
They wanted to have a sunken house.
Wanted to have a sunken living room? No. Wrong answer. Cows were in the low ceiling areas. Horses were in the tall ceiling areas. So they reared up a little bit, but they were also taller. Other thoughts and questions? Let's see. You can see the hog barn addition next door. So do feel free to take a look in there.
Did you have to do a lot of repair on the walls, like tuck pointing and all that stuff? I hear
Yes. A little bit, yes.
Not too much so in general there.
Generally, it was in pretty good shape, but we did have to tuck point some. Oh, and when you're tuck pointing a building from the 1850s, we had to take out some well-intentioned, if you see an old building, you see this mortar is kind of tan. That's because it's a soft lime mortar with a lot of sand in it. There was a number of well-meaning repairs done where it's this hard gray cement, what they call a high-strength mortar. Don't use it in a historic building. You need to have the soft mortar because it, believe it or not, it gives. It has a certain amount of resilience to it. That the high-strength mortar, while it's great for a 20-story masonry building, it sucks for historic buildings. It will tear the wall apart. So we had to take out some well-intentioned repairs and tuck pointing.
Wow.
Where was the original bar?
Right here,
The original bar was here, you said?
across here.
Oh, wow.
So went from there get you there. And so, see the windows, nice little backdrop for the bar. You had the faux barn doors, great place for the back bar, all the bottles and such.
So these are original timbers here and stuff? Like these are?
These are original timbers, walnut from this farm.
Wow.
That's an import from over by western Milwaukee.
The staircase one there?
Those, yes.
Oh, okay.
Was there something on that wall that looks like it might have been a window?
I
Ooh.
think that was more a stall. That a stall would have been a vertical. Let's see, there was, or was it? Let's see. It's possible there could have been a window there. I'm seeing a line on the other side, but I'm not seeing a header. Was a window, you see the wood header up here?
Huh. Watch out for the cord. Watch out for the cord there, sorry. Yep. That was making me fall down.
We have co-owner, Craig Kenning.
Hello.
Hi, Craig.
Glad you could all come out and listen to this wonderful speech and all the information that Arlan has.
How long have you been working here, Craig? Since the beginning, too?
I started out down in the tunnel and worked my way up.
Are there still tunnel parties? We heard we weren't supposed to talk about them.
We're done with the tunnel parties. We quit those as soon as I became the manager. I had too much inside information. Yeah, I started in the construction phase and just kind of helped out and did a lot of the little things around, and then opened as the chef and became manager, and then the Gartons took me in as a co-owner.
Wow.
A glutton for punishment.
Yeah, there you go.